Chase, we ready to go?
All set. Thanks for being here, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, joined by Brian Anderson from Cato Networks. So our purpose here today is to kind of demystify what SASE is. You know, as I've gone around and met with people in the industry, I've noticed that there's either a reluctance to really talk in depth about SASE, or just a lack of complete understanding around what SASE is. So we're going to talk a little bit about what SASE is, and kind of demystify that path to get to SASE, and really harp in on that. It's not an all in thing all at once. There's a roadmap to get there. And to add, Gardner, last year, well, this year, I guess, kind of issued a statement that 80% of organizations will have a strategic pathway to SASE by 2025. And we're pretty close to that. So let me get to the next slide here. We'll go through these pretty quickly so we can actually get to the content. Okay, so just a little bit about me, and then I'll ask Brian to introduce himself as well. So I'm Aaron Banner. I am the director for two practices within XenTegra, the networking practice and the security or cybersecurity practice. My background is I spent 31 years in the military, 26 of those really focused on uh, networking, cybersecurity, during my active duty time with the Army. And so I bring a wealth of experience here to this organization. Really glad to be partnered with Cato here. And Brian, over to you real quick, just to talk about yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm the field CTO, global field CTO for Cato Networks, and I come to you with, spending the last 20 years in cybersecurity, but my trade skill set, I'm a software engineer, so I've evolved in technology, and happy to talk to you today about SASE.
Thanks, Brian. I think my transitions are going a little slow. Let's see. Okay. So who is XenTegra? All right. So basically five companies in one. We've got XenTegra LLC. We've got our nearshore, which is in Canada. We have our offshore in India. We have XenTegra One, which is our SMB company, really focused on that core 500 and below, and really kind of trying to design programs and align with partners that really fit that model. And then XenTegra MSP, that's basically our services, our support contracts. And I'll go into a little more detail later on really what areas they focus on. Also have five practices within XenTegra. So I talked to you about my two practices. We have a ServiceNail practice. We have a modern workspace practice, really focusing on EUC. And then we have our data center practice, obviously focused on the data center. Okay, just a little bit about us. To start, our model is really to build a community, something we're trying to do here today, and then create solutions that serve that community. So if that's, figuring out integrations for the different solutions that you may have, developing services around products that you may have, or supporting you through the life cycle of those products. We are a VAR. The greatness that we bring to the organization or to our community is that, through our partnerships, we're able to really get deep discounts by, having qualified people on staff, or by our longstanding partnerships with them, which we now get to pass on to, our clients. We do have various consulting services aligned to those five practices that I, was speaking of. And so whether that's one product you're looking for, or really strategic consulting services over the lifetime of that, and the integration of it. Managed services, as I was speaking of earlier. So whether that's Cisco, Fortinet, Arista, Juniper, Citrix, NetScaler, F5, various vendors that we align with, and we can package managed services for you for day to day, or month to month, quarterly, yearly, or support contracts, for various type of, if for time frames that you need services with or support contracts with. And then we offer complimentary assessments. So various assessments, whether that be in the cybersecurity realm, networking type assessments, integration of ServiceNow, lots of assessments out there that we can do. You can find that on our website. Okay, so this is Andy Whiteside, our founder and CEO. You can see the statement there, but really, where XenTegra began about 13 years ago was Andy was doing a lot of Citrix work at the time. And what he noticed was a disconnect in really the product and the customer. So, he wanted to develop a model where he could better support customers, develop solutions for those customers, help them get the most out of the products they were buying. And so really that was where XenTegra was formed, and really still what we're doing today. So, you hear the word VAR a lot, and we refer to ourselves as VAR 2.0. And so VAR 2.0 really is going that next step for our community, for our customers, whether it's the complimentary assessments I mentioned before, doing webinars like we are today. We host multiple webinars every month that we invite our client base to join in on. Hands-on workshops, and that can go anywhere from executive level workshops designed specifically for around a vendor or a product or a service, and we bring in executives to talk to them about that, show them how it works, or literal hands-on workshops like a Cato Drive event, where we bring you in, you get actual hands-on keyboard, you get to integrate with the products that you're looking at potentially buying. We do a host of podcasts. I have my own Command and Control. Within that podcast, I might, work with a vendor on really highlighting a particular new solution they have or an integration they have. I might do something called short bursts where, I know not everyone has 30 minutes to listen to a podcast. So I keep that to 5 to 10 minutes, and it's talking about a very pinpointed topic, something new and relevant. And then we also talk about, things that just happen in the landscape, whether that be the CrowdStrike event from not long ago, or, we break down what those problems are, and then we pull in the solutions that have been developed to address that problem. So really 3 areas I focus in on my podcast. And then we also offer conference passes, which, I don't think you'll find many others doing that. And so we discount conference passes down to 90%. That's, for me, that's RSA, that's Black Hat, that's Fortinet, that's F5, a few others that I do from the security side, but then we do ServiceNow and many others, Cisco Live. So yeah, talk to us about, our conference passes. We really offer a great discount there and get you out to an event that you'd like to be at. So here's my call to action, for this webinar. This doesn't have to be difficult. Hopefully we will demystify SASE, particularly, Cato's SASE offering today. And then we'd like to ask you back in and talk to us about your SASE journey, help you develop that strategic roadmap forward. So yeah, schedule some time with us and Cato following this webinar. And Brian, I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what SASE is, and then we're going to talk about specifically what a gradual approach to the adoption of SASE can look like. And there's many different first steps that can be made to transition to the more modern operating model of SASE. But IT leaders for decades have been challenged with the question, can my infrastructure support my business, right? And there's a growing demand for additional capabilities. Technology advances quickly, and it's a struggle to keep up with the business infrastructure, with the demands of technology and the capabilities that were asked. Historically, networking and security has been comprised of a variety of point solutions. And each one of those solutions has a specific function, a specific feature that has been acquired for the reason that it's in the environment to begin with. And then there's also each one of these new capabilities that we need to to accommodate the demand, introduces more solutions. Those solutions require more skill set, require more people, more time, more power, more budget specifically. So, the equation that we're faced with here is to become more capable or add more capabilities, we need to spend more. And with this additional set of solutions that are added also introduces more complexity. And with more complexity, this introduces more risk. And then there's the never-ending stream of new security vulnerabilities. And so it's very clear that this historical kind of operating model of the point solution approach simply doesn't scale to the demand of the technology requirements that organizations face today. Gartner tells us that you can't solve tomorrow's problem with yesterday's solution. So Shlomo Kramer in the late 80s created a company called Checkpoint. And Checkpoint software introduced the first stateful firewall, revolutionary at the time. In 2002, Shlomo Kramer created Imperva, which was the first web application firewall or database activity monitoring, application data aware over the network, revolutionary for the time. In 2015, Shlomo Kramer created Cato Networks specifically to solve this problem, and that is the convergence of networking and security into a cloud-native platform that can operate, and that's now called SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. In 2019, Gartner coined the term or defined the category as SASE, and since that time, many competitors or vendors in the space have tried to reposition and package their products to align to the SASE requirements. And the SASE requirements, by definition, according to Gartner, would be that you're cloud native, that you're identity aware, that you're converged, you have a global footprint, and that you can support all edges. And we're going to talk about what that means shortly. But in 2024, Gartner has named Cato as a leader in the single vendor SASE space, and Forrester has also named Cato a leader as well. But let's talk about some of the terms, because we're throwing around a lot of acronyms here. And so there is the notion of SSE, which is Secure Service Edge, and that really is comprised of a couple of components. Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA. It's basically providing remote secure access to applications, right? Secure Web Gateway, SWG, as it's referred to, is really mitigating web-based threats, or looking at are my employees and contractors going to sites that are safe? Are there phishing attacks that are being in my environment, that sort of thing? And then we have Cloud Access Security Broker, CASB, as they call it. So this addresses the shadow IT use case of hosted or SaaS applications where your data as an organization is there, your users are interacting with this hosted applications. How do we manage that, and how do we see what's going on from a risk and operation perspective, right? So SASE incorporates two additional components here by the native initial definition of that. There would be firewall as a service, as well as SD-WAN, a software-defined wide area network. Basically, the connectivity between your data centers and your branch locations and remote locations, and also cloud, providing that interconnectivity. And recently, a couple of other capabilities have been commonly seen with the SASE offering. Things like data loss prevention. What are you doing with your data? How are people using it? And what's going on? Where does it sit? What does it look like in rest, in motion, and in use? And then there is security services like intrusion prevention, IPS, where we can block threats over the network, right? Or next-gen anti-malware, addressing things like ransomware, endpoint security. It's been now a part of the portfolio, right? So Cato keeps things simple. Essentially, Cato connects your headquarters and data centers and branch locations and cloud environments to your applications for users coming from anywhere. MPLS networks are expensive, and they have limited connectivity or bandwidth. So Cato provides a global, reliable, private backbone to operate on and give you full visibility into your network. The second is we secure all of that traffic that traverses your network. And we mitigate or block against attacks and threats across your network. Cato provides an enterprise-grade level of security where you don't need to sacrifice on security or backhaul any traffic. And then lastly, we let you operate that from a single console that we call the CMA, the Cato Management Application. And so essentially, we allow you to manage all of your security and your networking from a single interface and a single set of APIs. And this has significantly reduced the operational effort it takes to manage the environment. Feedback that we get from our customers is that they have way too many consoles to log into to manage and administer their IT infrastructure and their security portfolio. So this dramatically simplifies operations. Cato has built a purpose-built cloud specifically designed for networking and security. And this isn't a cloud like you're familiar maybe with Amazon or Google, that's more of a compute cloud designed to host services. This is more of a cloud that is specifically designed for connectivity globally and security operating on top of that backbone. Cato has completely rewritten the TCP/IP stack and built a infinitely scalable cloud. And when I say infinitely scalable, we have steering logic that will route traffic down to a per core level in our servers that are very powerful servers in our data centers. And so it is self-healing, and by nature, it is limited only by the amount of CPU. And we expand this capability by 2 to 3 data centers per quarter, and we're actually over 90 locations now. The round trip time for packets going across our backbone is less than 20 milliseconds. So if I'm in China, Australia, here in San Diego, which is where I'm hosted, or in Virginia, wherever, I'm only 20 milliseconds away from connectivity to my resources. And every one of these points of presence is symmetrical. And by that, I mean all the capabilities that we're going to cover today, both from networking and security, are available in every single point of presence that we have globally. So we're looking at a telco grade network with tier 1 providers and deployed in internet exchange locations with partners like Megaports or Equinix. Right, so we have 5.9 availability for this, and we're very, very flexible in the way it could be deployed. And so the way that this cloud native environment is built, or this platform is built, enables us to aggressively innovate. We have over 340 projects alone slated for 2025 with our engineering organization, and we are adding services constantly. And we're going to see how the design of this can really enable organizations to take advantage of some of these capabilities on a single native platform. So again, I said this is the world's first SASE platform, and there's other vendors that talk about SASE, but we're going to talk about what this means from a cloud native design perspective. We created something called a single pass cloud engine. I mentioned there's steering logic to parse traffic. All ports and all protocols can get parsed down at a per core level on your servers in our data centers. And this is, we own the software, we own the hardware, we own the network. This is not solutions that we acquired and integrated together. This is 100% proprietary, built, owned by Cato. And so this single pass cloud engine can inspect every single packet, every single network flow. And this is coming from any edge that you have, whether it's a data center, a cloud environment, a remote branch location, a remote user, and we accelerate and optimize that traffic globally. And on top of this backbone, we introduce security services, some of which we've seen in the previous slide in our terms, secure web gateway, IPS, DNS security. We also have RBI, which is remote browser isolation, which allows users to navigate to a unsanctioned or risky website, but we rasterize that and we don't allow JavaScript execution. So secure web traffic can be delivered to your users. So these enterprise-grade security solutions running on top of the backbone, right? And how do we connect to that? Well, we can give you what's called the socket appliance. You plug it in and it works. Essentially, that connects your data centers, your branch locations directly to our backbone. And as soon as you connect, all of those services are available between those different connections. And then you can secure that traffic as well. We also provide a remote client that you can install on your workstation or your mobile devices. And that, using the same DTLS type of connection to connect to our cloud, gives you access to any other locations and services that you have that are connected to the backbone as well. This would work the very same way for cloud integrations. We offer interconnect, cross-connect, or express route. We can also support IPsec. So whether it's a cloud environment you're connecting, or if it's a legacy firewall that you want to use IPsec to connect, there's a variety of different options. It's very, very easy to connect to the cloud. And once you get connected, all these other services are immediately available to you. This also works for, we mentioned Shadow IT with CASB, SaaS applications. Maybe it's a ServiceNow or Salesforce or a Dropbox or some kind of hosted platform that that the employees or contractors are using. We can force that traffic to go over our backbone and secure, so we get full visibility to what's happening in applications that don't even preside within your infrastructure, and help you manage that Shadow IT or that additional technology footprint and data exposure. And second, the output is only good as the input. And so I mentioned that we inspect every single network flow, from DNS queries, authentication, all ports and all protocols, down to accessing applications. So if we have access to all of this data, this gives us opportunity to run AI models on top of that. And the statement is, we were doing AI before it's cool. Ever since the inception of Cato, we've always had these models running on top of the amount of data that we have. With such a vast amount of data, and we're going to look at some of these events, we can pick out anomalies that happen in your environment and help to mitigate real challenges in real time that you can only really do or accomplish if you have all of this data in the same place. I mentioned that, with different point solutions that we have historically with networking and security, each one of those solutions has its own event, has its own schema or attributes to those events. And you can forward that to something like a SIM, sure. And then we have to normalize and ETL that to make sense of this data. And then there's a feedback loop when I want to take action from that, which is like SOAR, where I can then try to integrate with and go back to the place where I want to mitigate something. And the biggest challenge in security is, do I have enough information to confidently block this? Or am I missing something about the information I'm getting? All of this information is available on the same platform that you have the ability to mitigate traffic on. And so we produce these XDR events, which are anomalies, and give you specific actionable events where you can go and understand the context, do some triage and investigation, and provide mitigation capabilities on the same platform. And then lastly, we have a single management console. It's a single API. It's a single set of policies, a single place to go to for management of all of your networking and security on one platform there. To give a little bit more color on connectivity here, I mentioned we have socket appliances. Depending on the connectivity requirement that we have, we would put the right size box in place, right? Get your connection up from your either data center or branch location or remote locations directly up to our cloud, and it's just that easy. We also have virtual sockets for cloud environments, provide IPsec or then interconnect, as I mentioned as well. But then we have the client as well that get installed on the remote workstation or the remote workstations for your employees and contractors, right? And this is not just a VPN client. This is basically a platform local to the workstation itself. It's a software-defined perimeter with the remote staff post-COVID. IT cases are up 30% with organizations having to deal with operational and experience issues of now a significantly remote staff. How do we deal with that? So our client that is installed on remote workstations and mobile devices can also handle things like device posture. Are you running up-to-date OSs? Do you have the certificate installed? Internet security, what your experience is when you try to access an application. Are you not able to get there because of your weak Wi-Fi connection? Or is there something in the last mile or the internet connection that's the issue? Or is it the application not responding? So we can give you visibility to IT operations as well as networking and security, helping you pinpoint congestion that you may have within your environment as well. This is an example of an event. And I talked about how we have a lot of visibility. This is a very, very rich event. Again, in something, just one of our raw events here, I see valuable information like the username, the path or direction of this traffic egress or ingress. I see what point of presence or what part of the world you're coming from. I see the policy that was triggered, what the application, the domain that was being accessed. So a very, very enriched, granular set of information that we can glean off of every single network flow that traverses off the platform. So you have full capabilities to both shape and route that traffic with QoS or quality of service capabilities. Maybe what we want to do is prioritize things like Zoom and Office 365 and deprioritize things like Facebook and Instagram that may be chewing up bandwidth. And so we can help optimize and shape the traffic going over your network to create that optimal experience for all the staff that's required there, all within the same platform. So we've talked about a lot of capabilities here, and I'd like to pause and just kind of note that there is a gradual approach that can be taken as we transform or adopt the more modern operating model of SASE. And it's going to start with identifying specific use cases. And we're going to go through those use cases in a moment, Aaron and I. We're going to talk about maybe opportunities where you don't need to find new budget. We're going to use existing budget for current spend that we have on solutions that are in place today as a method of migrating to a more modern operating model of SASE adoption. And then we're going to align to, service start. Maybe there's MPLS contract expirations, or, maybe firewall replacement projects where your legacy, you have to replace, do hardware refreshes, for example. We can use these opportunities to transform or adjust or adopt the SASE model. And then with that, once you're on the platform, you can adopt the new capabilities over time. Again, I've mentioned the sheer amount of innovation that's being added to our platform very aggressively every single year. So all those things are natively available once you get onto the platform itself. And you can't do everything at once. Again, the purpose of this, let's talk about how we could take a gradual approach and give a step-by-step guide how to get there, right?
I'm sorry, go ahead. As we move into use cases, I just wanted to point out to everyone, be thinking about your divestiture strategies, how you can reduce or eliminate CapEx in favor of OpEx, and your scalability requirements. I think all of these use cases are going to speak to that. And please chime in with any questions you might have.
Absolutely. So the first use case that we wanted to kind of highlight is a potential migration off of MPLS. And MPLS had its purpose for a long time, but what we've seen is that, it can be expensive. It's difficult logistically to put in place as the business expands and grows and changes locations. And if we're looking to migrate off of that for a more modern operating model of the cloud native SASE approach, we can start with new sites only, for example. And so if you add a new site, we can provide connectivity to all the existing sites, and that could be a way, the first step in migrating off of that. And there's going to be budget allocated for that. We could just reallocate that budget to the SASE platform and migrate one connection at a time. And then that can depend on specific, we could transition to other sites on a specific timeline there as well. And what this gains you is global optimization of routing across all of these. Again, I mentioned we have 90 plus points of presence. And if somebody's connecting from your environment and you have different locations, we are no more than 20 milliseconds away from where you'd like to connect to. So this gives you a significant introduction of optimization and efficiency once you start adding or adopting the SASE model and the SASE platform there. And you can retain some legacy solutions if there are things that are in the environment, for example, that you don't want to tackle all at one time. Those things can remain, right? The second use case here would be around maybe firewall replacement, for example. We have, things like next-gen firewall and secure web gateway, IPS, maybe access to SaaS applications. That could be your first initial start of if you have a firewall replacement or a hardware refresh coming up. These are things that we can help with as far as only adopting initially just these security capabilities, right? And so eliminating edge security devices that are used to manage that. Going back to the sheer amount of complexity and the number of consoles that we need to log into, that is a hard cost, and that is an expense to the company. It's operating all of these things surely just to keep the lights on presents its own challenges, right? Lastly, once we adopt something like this firewall as a service or SASE for security, you're always up to date. And I want to take a brief moment here to talk about IPS, intrusion prevention, and some different interesting use cases that can only be mitigated with things like a platform, right? So IPS typically works with like a reputation service. Hey, I'm going to block this site or block this IP that's known to be malicious. Well, there's something called DGA, domain generation algorithm, for example, where a random domain is created and all of a sudden data is exfiltrated to that domain. And so the IPS service should deem that to be a bad site or bad domain, but the 0 day is the amount of time that it takes to identify that domain and the opportunity for people to exfiltrate data to that domain before it is blocked by an IPS service. And so because Cato is already in line and sees all these things happening in real time, we have the ability to identify via AI with the conventions of these domains that are generated and block domain generation algorithm exfiltration in real time, which is only really possible if you have a platform. So managing something like an IPS with existing appliances on premise, it's a huge effort and we're exposed if we don't have an effective approach. So being always up to date takes away all the pressure and effort that it takes to keep your systems updated, systems patched. Now it's available and it's handled for you with a dedicated team. We have hundreds of services paid for and open source to help kind of build out this enterprise grade security for you. And so it really simplifies that approach there. Aaron, I don't know if you had anything to add on the firewall replacement.
Yeah, I was going to pause just for a second here. So, this is one of the most, the greatest opportunities for divestiture, that we see on a continuing basis. And it typically happens, about, a year to 6 months out from when you have to do, a big hardware purchase as things are going into life. So, there's that aspect. There's also the aspect of, however many years down the road that you have to do that again, because that's something that just keeps going on a cyclical basis. The other things to think about are, it's always up to date. So you are not spending time and resources on getting things up to date, making sure everything is patched, latest versions. You are also you're not having to worry about the continual management, whatever aspects that happens to be. You're looking at again, capex spend versus opex spend, and you get to reduce that capex spend. There's just so many advantages to firewall as a service, and I think the ROI, it's just hard to compare, from what we've seen.
Absolutely. The next piece we'll talk about here possibly as an opportunity is cloud networks. I mean, cloud networks are not a part of your core network. I mean, what we want to do is we want to have a consistent experience accessing resources within your data centers or branch locations. And we also want to access resources in a cloud and be able to secure them in an efficient and consistent way. So we provide that native connection to any of these cloud environments to give you that. I mean, I understand that it's possible to connect to cloud today, but how do you also secure that traffic? How do you give a zero trust approach of access to applications for different types of users that are in your environment? So connection and also security on top of that connectivity is where this the value proposition comes into play. So if you do have cloud environments, we can help provide secure connection to those cloud environments, right? And then there's also being able to optimize connectivity to those to the different cloud environments as well. It's possible to leave MPLS in place in certain locations, but we give you optimized end-to-end traffic shaping as well between all these different environments. So if you have an application hosted in Virginia and you've got users connecting from lots of different regions, we can help egress that traffic closest to the point of origin with that origin server there and help optimize that end-to-end traffic flow for applications no matter where they're hosted, right? VPN replacement is another really great use case or opportunity for SASE adoption. Again, everyone in this day and age needs to provide a remote work operating model, and that is amplified post-COVID, as we've seen. And so there's opportunities to replace VPN controllers, for example, and have that be available now as a service. All the breaches that we see are typically stemmed from or caused by an unpatched appliance, something that was misconfigured, and it's typically related to multiple solutions with levels of access that aren't natively integrated in the same place. So if I have a VPN solution and then I have a cloud environment and I have an on-premise scenario, how do I effectively manage access to all these things, providing that zero trust level of access to my assets in a secure and efficient way as the organization grows and as complexity and technology demands us to expand our capabilities in the environment. So VPN replacement is a very good use case and opportunity to introduce the SASE model there as well. Awesome. So the last piece here, or the second to last piece here that we wanted to highlight is around mergers and acquisitions. And so if your organization acquires another company, or if you're going through a divestiture, we have to split your network and infrastructure. How do you do that in a secure way? To get ROI, return on investment for acquiring another company or acquiring additional infrastructure, we have to provide connectivity for users, for applications bidirectionally. And Cato allows you to do that in a very seamless way. So it doesn't have to be a part of your core network that you're revamping. It could be only providing connectivity to new M&A assets that are acquired by the company that you're liable for, but those networks are untrusted. So how do you provide bidirectional secure access to those things? Cato can do that natively. And again, via cross-connect IPsec or socket connections provide you a variety of ways to get connectivity onto the platform for existing environments that you have connecting to newly acquired assets that the company has, or even work through the divestiture scenario where you have to split a company off and provide services until that split is final, right?
Yeah, and I want to chime in here too, Brian. I mean, this is one of my favorite kind of aspects of SASE. The and Cato's model, really the divestiture you have here, as well as the scalability and the flexibility to provide your organization. And whether that's, merging with another company, and now you have to figure out, hey, how do we put two networks together that weren't designed to work together? In some cases, the technologies may not even match, making it nearly impossible. You don't have to worry about that here. If it's, hey, I'm adding a new branch or a new location, there's no waiting on hardware purchases, waiting on software purchases. There's no project timelines that you now have to, go through in order to build that out. It's literally just, changes in your SASE platform that happen near instantaneously. So the scalability, I just love it. And I love how this model works in M&A or expansion.
And this is a challenge for all growing organizations of all size. It's something that is a complex issue that can be made very simple. And so after you have adopted, let's say that you've started down the path of introducing an SD-WAN, right? To make the full transition to SASE, once you're on the platform, a lot of these other capabilities are a simple flip of the switch and adding a license. So once you start down the path, again, it doesn't have to be an immediate. It could be a gradual process and doesn't have to be everything at one time. But eventually, it can be very, very simple to operate once you transition to the modern SASE model. So here's an example of some of these steps that can be taken over time. You configure some policies initially. We can have a gradual rollout of maybe a remote client that we replace the VPN, for example, as the first step or use case there. And then we maybe start connecting branch locations natively on the backbone or on the platform as well. And so that reduces your costs and simplifies, and provides better connectivity, migrating off of MPLS, for example. And then we can start enabling different services on top of that. Again, flip of a switch. Now I have IPS and next-gen anti-malware, and I have firewall as a service, or CASB with my shadow IT and SaaS application footprint. I can now manage that in a secure way, and we phase out legacy hardware. And so we can get down to a single contract, a single platform, single set of policies, right? Really, really simplifying your operating model and reducing risk and introducing efficiency. And so now we have complete security and connectivity across the board, seamless integration to all of your cloud environments. And then we eliminate some data center footprint and operating model from, CapEx versus OpEx here, as was mentioned earlier. And then we can adopt all new features that are coming on. Again, this is a very aggressively innovative platform. It's introducing new capabilities every year. Over 300 projects that we have slated next year, and we're only growing. And it's only getting better and faster there. Here's an example of a customer that we have that took a multi-year approach to the SASE adoption. So in the first year here, we onboarded 1,000 users for remote access, right? In the second year, they introduced something like threat prevention, enabling that service. Introduced up to 6,000 users there, right? And then we increased that to 7,500 users for 25 sites that we connected. And then now we're, reaching the full breadth of the support for the enterprise. So the more of these sites that we onboard, this can be a phased approach. We've talked about a couple of different use cases of ways to onboard to get introduction to SASE. Again, starting with the MPLS migration or VPN replacement or firewall replacement, hardware refreshes, and so forth. All these things can be a path to adopt the SASE platform. And this is what it looks like to enable services and creates very, very simple policies. All these things can be a flip of a switch. So you have one place to manage all policies from. This is client access policies, internet firewall policies, WAN, LAN policies, network policies, where I can shape traffic and I can give priority to certain types of traffic within my environment. And I provide that minimal level of access, zero trust access to these assets over the network, right? And I can simply enable these services in a flip of a switch. There's nothing additional to deploy or configure. As soon as you connect to the platform, everything else is natively available on the backbone.
Hey, Brian, before we transition to me, can you talk just a little bit about, I'm thinking of the dashboard, right? And how, how you display things in the dashboard, how the customer sees the dashboard, and that interaction that the customer has where it's not, hey, look, we just hand over everything over to Cato and then we just accept what they give us, right? There's customer interaction and they have flexibility to choose their own journey, right?
Absolutely. So you have full capability we give you full visibility into your entire network and every single event, and you can manage and optimize both from a networking perspective and from a security perspective and access perspective, right? So on the networking front, you can see every event, every raw event. We help you parse those raw events, understanding that a lot of IT staff today have event fatigue. They see too many events. What's going on with this? We give you actionable events and anomalies that we identify in an XDR dashboard saying, hey, maybe there's a network event. You have some congestion here. We should look at this particular connection and give you recommendations on how to address that. Or we can help you shape your traffic and say, egress out of this particular POP for these origin servers, for these applications, and really optimize that end-to-end traffic. Help you prioritize that traffic with QoS and make sure that your critical applications are prioritized over other applications that may consume bandwidth. From a security perspective, you can get very granular on how you want to grant control or grant access to certain assets in your environment. We help you identify all the assets that are in your environment, whether it's an integration of your CMDB or NAC devices. We can then ingest those and have all of these full inventory that we can either learn over looking at traffic or you can ingest with an integration. Very seamless in that way. Now we can get down to a point of granting certain groups access to certain applications. So you have full managing capability over this platform, where we also partner with XenTegra to provide services around this. If you need implementation services and assistance in that, we can be staff augmentation as well. So really enabling you for success, but giving you full visibility and control over your network there. So our dashboards, again, one place to go to, one console, one set of policies, one set of configurations, one backend data lake, and one place to provide mitigation to significantly introduce optimization and efficiency and reduce your security risk.
Yeah, and Brian, you may not be the right person to ask this. I'm going to ask it, and maybe it's something we have to clarify later. But it's really I want to focus on operating in China and the concerns that I've heard from a lot of people that have come to us to develop solutions for them when operating in China. And so, we've taken many approaches from a basic, network architecture approach and leveraging, various areas of the cloud in order to kind of get away from this great firewall of China, if you will, because, clients have valid concerns as to the integrity of their data and the privacy of their data. And so while we were designing some of those solutions, just as early as about a year and a half ago, now we have a different approach. We have a way to bring in Cato to solve that problem for them. And again, I'm not saying that you have in-depth knowledge of that. I just know I've talked to a lot of Cato folks, and we have dug deep into that. So can you speak to, how you help clients with the China problem, if you will?
Absolutely. We have data centers that are local, native within mainland China, and we can ride our backbone to get anywhere in and out of China. So we provide that connectivity, and it's the same type of connectivity that you would have for me working in an office or me coming from my house with my remote client or a socket appliance that you would use native inside of China, connect to a China POP, and then you can get to assets outside of that over our global private backbone. Now, we do have to look at some of the type of traffic that you're looking, make sure that we're adhering to the laws and regulations that are in place within China, but we do provide that easy mechanism to get in and out of China across assets that you want to connect on both sides and give you one central place to be able to manage that. So it's not a separate solution that you would have to be able to provide that connectivity and separate security and separate implementation. This is one single platform that provides you that connectivity natively directly inside of China, where our backbone can get there. And then assets or folks that are working within the China region connect locally to those China POPs and ride our backbone to get to assets outside of China in that way.
Right. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Brian. I know that was a little bit of a curveball, but I appreciate that.
Sure.
That's perfect.
It's a great question.
Do we have, is everything, are the mics enabled so that folks can jump in and ask questions, or do we have to go to the chat room for that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any questions that come up here.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I cannot see the chat here. Are you able to see the chat, Brian? I don't know why I can't.
Let me see if I can try to find that there. I don't see any questions that have come up so far, not in the chat. But we are looking forward to working with you on projects that you have come up, help answer any questions. And we'll certainly share, specific to the China question, a link to resources to help explain that in detail, just for clarification. And if there's anything else, we'd be happy to set up sessions to talk about this in more depth. Again, the call to action here with Aaron is kind of some next steps there, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I would love your feedback. Again, I'll go back to what I said initially. What I asked Kato to do was come in here, demystify SASE, really get down to a basics level, describe the terminology, help you understand what it is other than just a security framework. I think you knocked it out of the park, and I appreciate that. Really wanted to focus in on, hey, where's the divestiture opportunities? Really wanted to hit scalability, which we absolutely did, and that's one of my favorite things about SASE is really the scalability and the flexibility it provides your organization. And so I appreciate that, Brian. So I'd love feedback on, was this helpful? Is this something you enjoyed seeing? We plan on doing more of a series of podcasts, or I'm sorry, webinars with Cato We're going to go right over after this into a podcast because we've got a lot of listeners on that follow my podcast, and we're going to get basically the same information out in that kind of forum. Tell us what else you'd like to see, the questions you want answered about SASE if you're considering going that way. And so finally, again, my call to action: hey, reach out to me, reach out to us. Here at XenTegra, you can access us through the website, or at this point, you should have Chase and/or I's email address and my phone number at a minimum. So feel free to reach out to us, and we'll link you up with Cato and set up a time to talk to him, or just take some time with you and doing kind of consulting on SASE in general, and then helping you develop that roadmap to your future. So if there are no questions, we'll sign out here and give you some time back. Thanks everyone for attending.